Hey everyone, Matteo from the Hub World here with a special video about a board game I'm very excited about, DC Superheroes United. I am very excited for this game as a huge DC fan and a new United fan. I've played a lot of Marvel United in the last year or so. Jules has literally every single expansion. He funded all of the previous Kickstarters, and as a big DC fan and a new lover of this game, it was a no-brainer for me to get DC United. I backed DC United on GameFound this past summer when its campaign was going on. I backed the all-in pledge, so I got everything. So I thought, well, there's so many characters in the DC universe. Marvel got 3 seasons, so DC probably could get another season, and there's actually a lot of fan favorite characters and omissions that I realized, and that kind of got the wheels turning in my head. So just quickly before I go over what I think will be a pretty good sort of foundation for a season 2 of DC Superheroes United, first of all, let's just quickly go over some stats from the season 1 Kickstarter. So unlike the other DC game that was kickstarted, which was DC's Deceased Zombicide, DC Superheroes United actually did really well on GameFound. It made almost $4.5 million based on just over 14,000 backers. And that was really good. That was really comparable with the initial season of Marvel United, I believe. And then character-wise, which is obviously the big thing we're talking about here, Season 1 had a total of 129 characters, if my math is correct. 63 heroes, 40 villains, 17 dual-mode characters, and 9 pets or support characters. So for my breakdown here, it's relatively the same. I actually have a few more characters. I'll get down to that when it's time to talk about that. And also, not part of the campaign, they just announced just early this year that there's going to be a retail box that's going to be based on Batman Hush, which is a great story, by the way. If you haven't read it, read it. And the Hush reveal didn't really alter my list, because I had this list made, for the most part, in August. So, but then I heard there's going to be a retail box, and the theory was Hush. So once we got that concrete information about who's going to be in that Hush box, I had to make a few tweaks here and there. And actually some of the ideas that I had from that are going to be included as characters. I personally think Season 2 is going to be just as successful as Season 1. And for me, when I made this list, my overall goal was to expand the roster by focusing on established DC teams as well as legacy heroes. And that's where the title of this season comes from. It's going to be called DC Superheroes United Legacy. So when I say legacy characters, that means a new character that takes up the mantle of a existing character. So like Robin is a legacy character. Dick Grayson started off as Robin, and then Jason Todd was the second Robin. So he took on that mantle. So that's one massive thing that DC has that I just adore. I just love the mantle being passed down from character to character. And honestly, after I made this list, I had so many characters left over and so many more ideas that I think realistically I could make a Season 3 very, very easily. And you'll see why. So listen to the end of the video for that. And just for some ground rules, all characters I'm going to be naming are going to be displayed in alphabetical order, and I'm not going to get into specifics for gameplay elements when it comes to the characters. And when it comes to the expansions that I talk about, I have a few ideas, but they're not all worked out. So I just wanted to get this video done because I'm just so excited, and the Hush expansion really just reinvigorated my idea for this video. So without further ado, we will get started with the core box. So for the core box, this will be available at retail, so anyone's going to be able to pick this up if they want. But obviously, if you back it on GameFound or Kickstarter, you're going to get some bonuses. But the core box for the campaign should be of a team or a group of characters that are still iconic and are very diverse in terms of powers. And one of the teams that was not really represented very well, that does have a lot of recognizable characters, is Young Justice. So this is going to be based on the roster of the really, really phenomenal Young Justice animated series. And the characters I have for that are Aqualad, which is the Jackson Hyde version of Aqualad. Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle, one of my all-time favorite DC characters. I was shocked that he wasn't in Season 1. Miss Martian, a character I was also a bit surprised by because she's going to be playable in Deceased. Rocket, Static, and Wonder Girl, the Cassie Sandsmark version of Wonder Girl. And for the villains, I picked Count Vertigo, Clarion, Sportsmaster, and Vandal Savage. So that rounds that out. All four of those characters are actually part of the Light in the Young Justice animated series. And for the 3 bonus characters you get for backing this, I added Dr. Midnight, Alan Scott Green Lantern, and Hourman. So these are 3 characters I think that were really missed in the first season. Sort of rounds out the JSA a little bit. Static and Rocket open up the Milestone universe of characters, and also Vandal Savage is one of the biggest villains they actually didn't include in the first season. This box kind of just made itself because there were just so many characters that just fit this theme, and a lot of them are actually pretty high profile characters. Like Blue Beetle had his own movie, Miss Martian was in Supergirl, and this really fleshes out the Young Justice roster and adds a few pretty fun, sort of obscure villains. But I think that the talented people at CMON can make something like that work, especially for Sportsmaster. I think Sportsmaster would be fantastic. On to the first crowdfunding exclusive expansion. So for the first crowdfunding exclusive expansion, I decided to pick the theme of Themyscira. Themyscira, as you know, is the island that the Amazons are from, and so this is going to be sort of the Teen Titans box equivalent. This box would be announced alongside the Young Justice core box as like the first sort of announcements for the campaign. And once again, Themyscira really wasn't that well represented in Season 1. There was a lot of Amazonian characters that they really could have done, and also some key Wonder Woman villains that are just still sitting there. And so for the heroes, I have Artemis, Donna Troy, Queen Hippolyta, and Wonder Girl, the Yara Flor version. One of the newer characters on this list, and I think she is a very popular character. And for the villains, I have Circe and Gigantia. Both of these characters were very, very heavily demanded in the first season, and what better way to showcase them than as the villains of their own box. And then sort of the exclusive, like the Power Girl equivalent of that box will be Steve Trevor as a hero. So that kind of puts a nice bow on Wonder Woman's world. After this, I think a lot of the main characters in her sort of branch of the DC universe have been added. And with adding all of these Amazons in this box, I've decided to also introduce a new team deck. So the Amazons team deck. And I'll be going over all the team decks at the end of this video, so be sure to keep listening until we get to that part. So the third box here will be another retail box. I'm going to be alternating between retail and crowdfunding exclusive boxes, but this is a retail box. It's going to be themed around the Titans, not the Teen Titans. So this is going to be a sort of spiritual successor box to the Teen Titans box that we got in Season 1, and it's going to include additional key members to a lot of those original Teen Titans teams, while also paying homage to classic Teen Titans stories with some of the character selections. First off, for the heroes, I have included Arsenal, Dove, Hawk, and Wally West's Flash. And Wally West is probably the biggest one there that I thought for sure would have been in Season 1. So he is another key sort of character. You could probably like theme the box art around him. And for the villains, 3 classic Teen Titans villains. We have the evil sister of Starfire, Blackfire, Brother Blood, who is one of the biggest bads in Teen Titans, and Gizmo, the fun little tech character. I feel like they could do a lot of cool stuff with Gizmo. He was great in the Teen Titans animated series. And our first anti-hero of the season, I have Terra. You could kind of play out the Judas contract with her as a villain. And for our crowdfunding exclusive characters, I added Tempest, who was the original Aqualad, Garth, and Ravager, the daughter of Deathstroke, also as an anti-hero. So this box will also include the Titans team deck, and some of the Teen Titans themselves were part of the Titans when they got older, so they will all be included in this deck as well. So our fourth box is going to be titled Injustice for All, and it will be a crowdfunding exclusive box. It's going to be a villains box, and DC has some fantastic villains, and a lot of them still didn't make it into season 1. So I kind of felt like, well, this is going to be like a Sinister Six type of boss rush mode. And when I was thinking of the name Injustice for All, the Injustice League is my preferred like villain team up name. I know the Legion of Doom exists and it's iconic, but I think the Injustice League just sounds better in my opinion. And the whole idea of this is going to be that it creates an Injustice League villain deck. And the Injustice League will be comprised of most villains that are in DC United up to this point, including villains in Season 1. And the Injustice mode will allow players to create their own Injustice League that you can fight against. And the villains that I feel would be really fitting for this box are just great Justice League villains. Eclipso, Felix Faust, Icicle, Merlin, Metallo, and Ultra Humanite. Metallo, I know it's a Superman villain, but he's got some really great Justice League stories. If you haven't watched Justice League Doom, Metallo is a very prominent character in that story, and Ultra Humanite's one of the oldest DC villains. So yeah, I just like the idea of having a villain team deck. I don't think that's ever been done in a United game before, and DC's got fantastic villains, so why not do it for this game? So for our third retail box, we're going back to Arkham Asylum. I'm calling this Return to Arkham, and it will literally be a expansion to the Arkham Asylum breakout box from Season 1. And we're going to have even more Batman characters represented in this. The heroes of the box aren't the biggest names, but they do deserve to be represented in the game. And that is Batwing and the Signal. But we do have two anti-heroes to include here, which are more popular characters. Azrael, which is, I just love Azrael's design, and Talon. So you can also play as these characters as villains. And speaking of villains, we have Firefly, Hugo Strange, Killer Moth, Kite Man, Mad Hatter, and Victor Zsasz. As for crowdfunding exclusive characters, we have Anarchy and Punchline. And one really cool thing that I hope they do in a box like this would be to add more members of the Justice League that you can fight against while playing in the villain mode. So like in Season 1 we have Batman, Superman, The Flash, and Wonder Woman. Put in Green Lantern, put in Green Arrow, put in Aquaman. Like that would be really cool if you could just fight more members of the Justice League. Like even if it's not in this box, it could be a stretch goal or something like that. Just the more variety the better. That's what I love about the United games. So going into the next crowdfunding box, it's one of the largest sort of corners of the DC universe that wasn't explored much in Season 1. That is the New Gods. This box is going to shed a spotlight on one of the most compelling aspects of cosmic DC in my opinion. And for the heroes in this box, you do have some fairly large names. You have Big Barda, Forager, Highfather, Metron, Mr. Miracle, and Darkseid's biological son, Orion. As for the villains, we have Glorious Godfrey, Granny Goodness, and Darkseid's actual son, Kalibak. And this box will introduce the New Gods team deck. And for our last retail box, we're going to Central City. This box is going to be loosely based on the CW Flash TV series, and I sort of decided like it should be a Central City Heroes versus the Rogues box. So as for our heroes, we have Impulse, Bart Allen, Kid Flash, which will be the Wallace West version of Kid Flash. We have the Golden Age Flash himself, Jay Garrick, and Vibe. I know Vibe is a Justice League character in the comics, but for the CW show, Cisco Ramon was the largest, probably supporting character in the show for a very long time. For our villains, we have 4 members of the Rogues. We have Golden Glider, Mirror Master, the Trickster, and Weather Wizard. This box is going to be a larger box, so I decided, well, we're going to have 2 anti-heroes in this box. We have Heatwave and Killer Frost. And because this is a retail box, you have to have your 2 crowdfunding exclusive characters, and that will be Gypsy and another rogue, the Top. So the rogues generally are not all that bad, so that's why I also included Heatwave as a dual mode character, but some characters maybe could be also treated as dual mode if they add the cards in stretch goals. But yeah, for the most part, there's so many really great Flash villains and supporting characters. So Central City was probably like the last really big city that could be represented, because I know we have the Gotham one, we have the Metropolis one. Coast City, Star City, I don't think there's that many great characters that you could include there. And with this Central City box, we're also going to get the Flash Family Team Deck. And for our final crowdfunding exclusive expansion, this one will be centered around one of my favorite versions of the Justice League, the Justice League International. And the Justice League International has such a great team. There's so many like colorful and niche heroes that are part of the Justice League International. And a lot of these characters have very different power sets. So we have Captain Atom, Dr. Light, the Kimio Hoshi version of Dr. Light, so the one that's not the villain. We have Elongated Man, the second best stretchy hero in DC Comics. Fire, Geoforce, the brother of Terra, Ice, to go with Fire, and one of my favorite niche DC heroes, that I guess might not be niche after the Superman movie, we have Metamorpho. And for our villains, we have 2 really key villains that are in Justice League International. The first one being Amazo. And Amazo is going to be great because his whole thing is he sort of copies the powers of the heroes that it fights against. So that could be implemented in a really creative way. Maybe he takes cards from our heroes and then you could use them against the players. And then we have Maxwell Lord, who is the main benefactor of the Justice League International, but actually ends up being a villain at the end of it. So he would be a great villain. Sort of like a man behind the chair, very much like a Lex Luthor type, but without the power armor. This is where things get interesting for me for our final 2 crowdfunding exclusive sort of boxes. So as you all know, Season 1 had 2 sort of mini boxes that were crowdfunding exclusive. One being a Green Lantern character pack and the other being a sidekick sort of pack. So instead of doing a sidekick pack in Season 2, I opted to just do 2 character packs because there were 2 really big DC superhero teams that I love, that one was just not represented at all. The other one only had 1 character. So for the one that had 1 character, we are going to go to the 31st century and talk about the Legion of Superheroes. So the Legion of Superheroes, if you don't know, they're from the future in the far-flung 31st century, and it's more cosmic DC representation. So I have 6 characters in this pack. We have Brainiac 5, Cosmic Boy, Lightning Lad, Matter Eater Lad, Mon-El, and Saturn Girl. This is like your main core of the Legion of Superheroes. And with that, we'll also introduce the Legion of Superheroes team deck. And don't worry, Arm Fall Off Lad will be included in that because he is one of the best characters that was added in Season 1, in my opinion. I love that. And then for the other DC team that was not represented at all, I think this is probably the best way to introduce them, and that's the Doom Patrol. And we have 5 heroes involved in the Doom Patrol. We have Elasta Woman. You can't call her Elasta Girl anymore because the Incredibles has that. But yeah, Elasta Woman, Mento, Negative Man, Robot Man, and the leader of the Doom Patrol, we got the Chief. That will also introduce the Doom Patrol team deck. And yeah, I just think leaving the Sidekick expansion and expanding that sort of through stretch goals is probably the best way that they can do things, in my opinion. So, with all the retail and crowdfunding exclusive boxes out of the way, we got to talk about the all-in bonus. And you got to go with a big fig character like we had with Starro the Conqueror. One of my favorite DC villains that doesn't get enough love is a character that is usually very small, but when he's at his highest power, he is a massive kaiju. And that is Mr. Mind, the Shazam villain. He would be fantastic in my opinion. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to have one more dual mode character who is a member of the Justice Society of America, but also does have his own conflicts now and again. We have the Spectre, the Jim Corrigan version of the Spectre, the embodiment of God's vengeance, one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe. Even though I've talked about all these boxes, we're not done talking about characters yet, because we still got to go through our stretch goals. So, before we go over the stretch goals, here's some context for Season 1. Season 1 had 23 heroes, 21 villains, and 5 dual mode characters as stretch goals. So these characters were chosen to sort of help flesh out the teams and the pockets of the DC universe that I focused on while making my list. And they also, in a way, tease where Season 3 can go. So first of all, for the heroes, in alphabetical order again, we have Adam Strange, one of my favorite obscure DC characters. I know I keep saying that, but I got a lot of them. Animal Man, Batmite, Blackhawk, Blue Devil, Bumblebee, Commissioner Gordon. And now this is one that I just want to pause quickly and talk about. Commissioner Gordon, a playable version of Commissioner Gordon was in my Hush box that I initially planned. I know he is a sidekick, but that doesn't make sense for him. He's a big enough character to have his own playable hero, in my opinion. Anyways, next up we have Commander Steel. We have Green Arrow, Connor Hawke, which is Oliver Queen's son. Creeper, Frankenstein, Nort, and Simon Baz as 2 Green Lanterns. Simon Baz is probably the biggest Green Lantern that wasn't in Season 1. Back to the Milestone universe, we have Icon, one of my favorite Milestone characters. Madame Xanadu, Mary Marvel, Mr. Terrific. I don't know how Mr. Terrific wasn't in Season 1. He's going to be in the Superman movie. He's a big character now. Ragman, Sergeant Rock, Shazam Jr., which is Freddie Freeman. Sideways. This is one of my selfish picks. Sideways is a really new character that was introduced, I believe, in DC Rebirth. He's kind of like Spider-Man, but he uses portals. And he looks just like Spider-Man. Look at this picture of him. Jonathan Kent, Superboy. I don't know how he was not in Season 1. He's a huge character. And then lastly, for heroes, we have the Atom, but Ryan Choi's Atom. The Atom was in, I believe, the JSA box for Season 1, the Ray Palmer version. Next up, we have our villains. We have Atomic Skull, Black Spider, Chemo, Copperhead, Dr. Savannah, Gentleman Ghost. He'd be great. I love him. He's one of my favorite DC villains. Next up, a more obscure DC villain, but one that he's actually in a lot of stuff. Kanjar Ro, who is he's a cosmic villain. Lady Shiva, Livewire. Another selfish pick of mine, the Music Meister. I know he's not in the comics, but he'd be a great joke character. That Music Meister episode in Batman the Brave and the Bold is amazing. It still holds up to this day. So a few more left. We have Omac, Hal Jordan, but not as Green Lantern, as Parallax, when he went crazy and killed all the Green Lanterns and became the sort of embodiment of fear. Having Hal as Parallax would be phenomenal. Silver Banshee, Siren, the Shade, which is another great Justice Society villain, and Toyman. That is it for our villains, but we do have some stretch goal dual mode characters. These are essentially extra characters that could be used in the Suicide Squad mode. So we have Bronze Tiger, El Diablo, the Chato Santana version of El Diablo that you recognize from the original Suicide Squad movie. Enchantress, Eradicator, who is a character that was part of the Death of Superman and Reign of the Superman story. Tattooed Man, the Mark Richards version of Tattooed Man. Vigilante, the Adrian Chase version of Vigilante. And one of the most surprising things that was not in Season 1, in my opinion, a dual mode version of Deathstroke. So this would literally just be the cards, because you would just repurpose your villain Deathstroke from the Teen Titans box. So that's it for all the characters that I have planned out for Season 2. Time to tally them up. So here are the numbers once again for DC United Season 1. And now, for Season 2, that brings us up to 73 playable heroes, 50 villains, and 14 dual mode characters with a little asterisk. The asterisk because Deathstroke, technically, I have plans for cards. So realistically, it's 13, but I'm going to pad the numbers up because I feel like doing that today, for a grand total of 137 characters, compared to Season 1's 129 total characters. So a slight increase this time around, but I really think because of how well Season 1 did, Season 2 should have a little extra. So also as stretch goals, we have 2 more stretch goals that I can think of just based on my character selections. So you'd have to have the Shazam team deck, because we already have team decks for the Flash, Superman, Aquaman, etc. And then sidekick cards to really help flesh out the sidekick expansion that was one of the most disappointing things from Season 1. And because the theme of this box to me is Legacy, we're going to have a lot of sidekicks and legacy characters put into that, because DC had so many sidekick characters throughout the years. So the following characters then will be added as new sidekick cards: Aqualad, Miss Martian, Rocket, Wonder Girl, Arsenal, Tempest, Impulse, Kid Flash, the Wally West Flash, because Wally West was the original Kid Flash, Donna Troy, the Yara Flor Wonder Girl, Tim Drake Robin that was in the Hush expansion, and Batgirl, Barbara Gordon's Batgirl. She was Batman's second sidekick, so I don't know why she didn't make it the first time around, but I added her now. So, now onto the team decks. Season 1 introduced a lot of team decks, but Season 2 obviously is going to add a lot of heroes to those pre-existing team decks. So, instead of just me reading over all of them, here are going to be all the team decks that are going to be getting additional characters. So, we have the Justice League team deck, the Justice League of America team deck, Batman Incorporated, Teen Titans, the Outsiders, the Seven Soldiers of Victory, the Superman family, Justice Society of America, Suicide Squad, Green Lantern Corps, Young Justice, Aquaman family, Justice League International, and Justice League Dark. So, onto the new team decks. Like I said, we have 6 in total. We have the Shazam family, the Titans, Amazons, Doom Patrol, Flash family, the Legion of Superheroes, New Gods, and the Injustice League. These characters make up the main core of DC villains that have been a part of the Injustice League or the Legion of Doom or some sort of major DC villainous team in the comics. So some could be added, some could be taken out, but it does leave the door open for a lot more villains to be added in future expansions. This has been a really fun exercise for me, and it just made me even more hyped for the future of DC United. And I have notes in a separate document titled DC United Season 3 Elseworlds, with even more characters that could fit into Season 3. Not only are there way more characters that I left out that are part of the main DC universe. But I purposely kept out multiversal variants of characters, such as like Red Sun Superman or the Crime Syndicate, stuff like that. I just scraped the surface with Milestone by representing Static, Rocket, and Icon, and I didn't even touch Wildstorm and the Watchmen. Like, there are so many characters that I haven't even touched yet. Like, I cannot stress that enough. So the future of DC United can be very bright if DC and CMON want to continue this. Once again, I definitely expect them to. But for now, let's just hope that Season 1 doesn't get delayed by that much, because it wouldn't be a United campaign if we didn't have to wait a few months longer. But anyways, everyone, I'm so happy to be finally making this video. Thanks again for watching. If you like this video and want me to talk more about DC United, or even Marvel United, honestly, be sure to like and subscribe to the Hub World for more videos. I will see you again next time. Bye.